Hello, welcome inside the mind of Matt, and I was sent some more filament to review, this time by StrongHero3D. I've printed out a bunch of stuff, the results are here in front of me, and I'm going to talk about my experience. If you'd like to hear it, make sure you watch the rest of this video. Stay tuned. So once again, I was sent some filament to test and to report my experience. This is from StrongHero3D. They are available on an Amazon store. They sent me a couple different colors. I've got some black, I've got some marble, and I've got some silver. So I've printed out a bunch of models, and I'm going to talk about each one of the colors and what my experience was with each one of those colors. So let's clear off some of this other stuff. Alright, so let's start off with the black, and first a little story, and then that'll explain some of what you see in front of you is.
Oh boy! Story time! Story time! Story time!
First, I got this filament right about the time when I put out my open RC car and was getting ready for Earth. If you didn't get to see that video, I'll put a card up here. But I made the mistake that it was a demolition derby, which it turned out to be a pine wood derby. So I figured, some free filament, which, like I said, this filament was sent to me to review for free. If you'd like to know how you can get some of this filament for yourself for free as well, make sure you watch to the end of the video and I'll let you know how. I figured, an inexpensive filament I could use to print a demolition open RC car. So I did print the top part of the open RC car in this color, and it turned out pretty good. But before that, it all started with the maker coin. We'll start there. I will regress back to the beginning. So I printed out the maker coin, and as it started to print the first couple of layers, I noticed that I didn't have my oiler installed. Now, I am printing with all metal hot ends and printing with PLA. I have found, on a personal note, that using an oiler with a little canola oil does prevent any type of jams or blockages or any type of flow issues that might happen as a result of the all metal and the PLA. My experience, it works, but anywho, I started to print this. Noticed that I forgot my oiler, so I slipped it on, which I have a two-part that it'll actually break apart and you can slide it right over the filament. And it was at that point that I had a layer separation. From that point, everything started to print pretty good. So I printed the maker coin, dialed in my temperature. I did have to fluctuate my temperature. This black seems to, with all brands that I've printed with, seem to be a little bit hotter they need to be. So I was printing this stuff at 225, and I got the benchy out, and this benchy looks great. I had no stringing, no layer separations, no feed issues. At that point I had got my settings dialed in, and then of course I went and I proceeded to print the open RC. So once I discovered that it wasn't a demolition, I had to go and revert to doing a pine wood derby car, which if you didn't get to see that video, I'll put a card up here. So I kind of got split off from doing printing for the review and stuff like that, so I could do a couple videos. And then Earth happened, and of course I had the footage that I had to deal with that, and if you didn't get to see any of those videos, I'll put a playlist link right up here as well. But now I'm back to it. I've printed all this stuff and I'm going to be talking about it the rest of the way. But back to what I've printed. So once I got back to printing this stuff after all that stuff, I was looking to do a vase. I wanted to do something in a vase mode, and as I'm scrolling through Thingiverse, I happened to find this model, and it really piqued my interest. And as I further dove into it, it just all the stars aligned or signs pointed towards this model because it just happened to be by StrongHero, the modeler, the designer. So it was just inevitable. So I printed it out and it turned out great. And of course it led me to wanting to print some of the marble, which once I get to show all that, you'll see that. But this turned out fantastic. I'll get some close-ups here and you'll get to see some of the detail. And there was some areas that should have needed support and printed great without them at this scale. Once I did scale them up, I did have some problems with some bridging, but the black printed really good. I did some prototyping of a design that I've been working on for somebody, and of course, you know, with prototyping you have to do multiple renditions in order to make some tweaking when tolerance and stuff like that is important, which this project was. So having an inexpensive filament on hand that prints good for prototyping is a good thing. So at this point, the black had worked out for that. Now this was something else that I printed out for my Piper project to set up my bed, and I showed this off in one of my live streams. And if you haven't checked out my Piper build, I'll leave a card here where you can watch that series as well. So my report on the black is that all I had to really do was tweak my temperature a little bit. Otherwise it printed with my normal PLA settings. I didn't have to tweak anything other than just my temperature. So next we're going to talk about the marble filament, which I didn't have as good of luck with as this, but we'll see the results here in a second. Okay, now we have the marble PLA, and this is where I kind of had some problems with this filament. And I'm optimistic pretty much, and I believe that it's a matter of some settings that needed to be tuned a little bit more, but some of the problems that it caused was jamming, and it kind of deterred me a little bit from printing with it some more. But let's talk about what I got, talk about what happened, and some of the observations that I made during the printing. So once again, I always start out and with the Maker Coin and the Benchy, which I believe these ones, I had some problems on one printer and I switched, and these models are actually printed on 3 different printers, and I'll talk about that. But I started out on the CR10. I got a Maker Coin and a Benchy successfully printed, and then I figured I was going to go for the vase, and that's when I had my first failure. Now this was about 9 hours into the print, and it needed support, and I didn't put support on it at this scale. As you saw in the black one, it was 100% and it printed fine. Once I scaled it up, this is 200%, and there's some pretty drastic overhangs on the inside of it, which caused this to start to fail, and then it was a blockage, which I had to unclog, on the CR10, there was this was one of the observations that I made during the printing. Now I'm not exactly sure what they're using for the marbling itself, but I can actually like feel the little bumps throughout the filament. So, and I believe that this is the case, is that it's two different colors. Now I've noticed from two different colors of the same kind of materials from the same manufacturers have different temperature requirements, whether it be 5 degrees, 10 degrees, 15 degrees, whatever. The same materials, sometime in a different color, require a different temperature. And I believe that that is the case with this stuff, is that whether it's a black PLA or whatever color is for the marbling, might need a different temperature than the white stuff. And with any type of fluctuation in your temperature while printing, it could have an effect. And now I know my CR10 does have a little bit of PID tuning that needs to be done. So once this failed, I rescaled it. This is 125%. I actually manually inserted some supports in the lower area inside the model, and at that point I got a successful print. Now there are several areas on the actual design that, according to the slicer, required some support. I did not put it in, especially around this upper and lower rim where they're actually like a straight 90-degree from the bed angle, and it required support for each one of those, and I didn't want to put it in there to pick it out. So I just put it on the inside of this rim, and as you see, it printed successfully on the CR10. So at that point, I wanted to switch printers, and just to see if I was going to have any effect with maybe not an all metal hot end on my Delta. I did have some clog issues. I tried a maker coin. I tried a carabiner. This is actually a phone holder that I designed, and it's actually supposed to be like that wide, and that failed. So at that point, I kind of set it aside and started to print on the silver. And later on, I did revisit it a little bit. I put it on my Monoprice Maker Select version 2, and I did this in vase mode, and it came out good. Mo has a very consistent temperature. It stays pretty much flat line right across, and the results are kind of evident in this. It turned out good. So as far as this filament goes, I would put it in the exotic range of PLA, and it does require a little bit of tuning in order to get the right temperature. I believe is mainly the issue is going to be a temperature. But the marble, I really like the marble effect, and I was really happy when I got the marble sent to me. So there was one other thing, and I really don't want to make a big deal out of it because, you know, human is error, but they did mark it yellow PETG. So somebody obviously slapped the wrong label on this spool because it's obviously not yellow, and I believed what was written on the box, which said that it was actually marble PLA. So once again, there are links in the description as to where you can purchase some of this, but let's move on to the silver. Okay, so the silver PLA, I'm just going to start this right out, and because this is the last color of the review, I really like this color. That being said, let's go on and show you what I printed. So first, once again, you know, I always start out with a benchy and I'll make a coin, and they print it out great. no issues. Now, let me clarify from the get-go, I printed these on my Delta. Now my Delta is not the most precise as far as output of the nozzle, okay? But this turned out great. As far as the layers are good, there are some surface issues with it, and I'm contributing that to, you know, like I said, some of my settings on my Delta aren't exactly perfect, but it does put out pretty nice prints, and as you'll see here in a minute when I get a close-up on this guy right here. But so I went ahead and I printed a maker coin again, and then I wanted to go in the vase mold because I really like the way the Delta prints in vase mold, and I printed this guy, and this turned out fantastic. There's like a sheen, and I know it's the model that with the angles and stuff, but the way the light picks up on it, and just the color in itself, I really liked it, and it printed good. You know, it's not, you know, completely 100% waterproof, but I've never been able to get a single layer of PLA waterproof personally. But so I wanted to move on to, you know, a bigger model and something that I could really, you know, put some time into to see whether or not it was going to, you know, stay printing fluently without any jams or anything like that. And this is what I got. This dragon here is one of my favorite models, and this is the biggest that I've printed of it, and it turned out fantastic. And as you see, I'll get a close-up on some of this, but one of the issues with my Delta is that it shows my layer transition with like a line. I kind of line them up, and this particular print, it just lined up right here about behind the wing. But so I got done with this, and then I wanted to print this model that StrongHero3D put out, which is the R5J2 model, and I printed this on the CR10. I did print it with this orientation, and I printed it with supports. Now, one of the things I discovered when I imported the model into Simplified 3D, it was like really small. So I ended up like scaling it up to like 1200%, and this is the size that it got me. And I printed it out, and of course, as I was taking the supports off, the arms broke off. So I took the model into 3D Builder, and I fixed the model and brought it back in, and then it gave me 100% at this size. And it started to get to that point, one of my supports was coming off, so I canceled the print because I was getting a little bit of poor bed adhesion. And at that point I figured I would scale it up and print it at this size. Now, I haven't cleaned off the supports of this model yet, but if you hang around to the end of the video, I'll do a little time lapse of me removing all these supports. I actually, in Simplified 3D, I maximized the build volume and saw where it was, but then I ended up reducing it down to the tip of this at 300 millimeters tall. So this is 300 millimeters tall. But I started to run low. It was about right here, and in the close-ups here that I'll show, but I had to go to bed. That's all the filament I had left on there, and I had that much left to print, so I did change over to the closest that I could get, and this is actually Tesla aluminum, but that's not what we're here for. The lower part is is the silver, and once again, we don't get to see all the detail, but I will do the time lapse and then you'll get a little bit of a close-up as to all the details, so make sure you stay tuned for that. So once again, thank you to StrongHero3D for giving me the opportunity to print some of your filament. If you like this video, make sure that you hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, make sure that you have before you leave. And if you have, thank you so much for your support. Also, there's links down in the description where you can get a discount on all kinds of different stuff, as well as do some shopping that will directly support the channel, as well as links where you can directly support the channel. And a special thank you to all those that do support the channel by letting those ads play, buying me a cup of coffee, using the links in the description, and especially by using Patreon and buying me a cup of coffee. Thank you everybody for stopping inside the mind of Matt. Happy printing and be safe pouring. Did you stick around this long? Awesome. I've got this R5J2 over here. I've got all the supports that I've got to remove, so I'm going to go do it. Come on. So if you made it to the end of the video, I told you I'd tell you how you can get some of this filament for free yourself. Well, I am doing a 2,500 subscriber giveaway once I hit 2,500. I'm almost there. So make sure that you're subscribed and stay tuned for an announcement for my 2,500 subscriber giveaway, and there is going to be 30 rolls of this filament in that giveaway. So make sure that you're subscribed, then set that notification to on, hit the like button, and keep on coming back. Thank you everybody. Have a great day.